Katarina, these are the points of view. We need to look at these in different stories.
One of the most important things to understand in literature is point of view, or who is telling the story. When it comes to narration, there are 3 to 5 basic points of view, depending upon how you look at them. The first kind is first-person narration. This is when the narrator is actually a character in the story. So let's say I'm a character in the story, and I'm telling the story as I go. I would say things like, I walked along the beach until I came to a small cave. I looked inside. Is anyone there? I called. But there was no one. No one to hear my voice or see me. I was alone. Notice how I use words like I and my. You'll see that a lot in first-person point of view. Also, notice how you only get information that I have. You don't know what's in the cave because I don't know what's in the cave. With the first-person narration, the reader only knows what the speaking character knows, nothing more. The next kind of point of view is second-person narration. In this, the narrator directly addresses the reader as if the reader were a character in the story. It might sound like, you were walking down the beach. You came to a cave. You call in, but no one hears you. You are alone. If you are thinking that sounds a little unusual, that's because it is. Second-person narration is rarely used in prose literature or poetry. Finally, we have third-person narration. This one's a little tricky. Remember how I said there were 3 to 5 kinds of point of view? Well, that's because there are actually 3 kinds of third-person narration. Overall, third-person narration means that the narrator is outside the story looking in. You won't hear the narrator use words like I or me because the narrator isn't part of the story. It sounds like the boy walked along the beach and he looked into the cave. This kind of narration is used a lot, so it probably sounds familiar. But like I said, there are 3 kinds. Let's see if we can run through them quickly. There's third-person omniscient point of view. This narrator knows everything, every thought of every character. The narrator knows the future, the past, everything. So we might get, the boy walked down the beach, feeling anxious and afraid, but determined to press on. He saw a cave and continued toward it, not knowing a bear waited inside. The bear was anxious too. Years later, the boy and the bear would look back on this moment as the most important of their lives. I hope he doesn't get hurt on the beach, thought the boy's mother, miles away. Like I said, everything. Then there's the opposite, third-person objective. In this case, it's like the narrator is watching through a telescope. The narrator can describe everything that happens, but never goes into the inner lives of the characters. There is no description of thought or feeling, so it might be, the boy walked down the beach, looking anxious. He approached the cave and peered inside. Is anyone there? He called out. You get the idea. Finally, there is third-person limited. In this case, the narrator has some access to the inner lives of some characters. Sometimes we hear just the thoughts of the protagonist, and sometimes we hear the thoughts of the protagonist and a few others. It's as if we were getting a first-person perspective with a third-person narration. There's no I or my, but we are still more or less inside the head of the character. This is one of the most common forms of narration and is the kind of narration used in Through the Tunnel. So to recap, first-person narration, second-person narration, third-person omniscient, third-person objective, third-person limited.